Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar organized by Education USA Regional. We are very happy to welcome you with us today. My name is Alina, and I'm an Education USA advisor. So as you know, Education USA Regional is assisting students who are in the process of their application or are planning to apply for their studies in the US, either undergraduate or postgraduate. We have advisors which can help you during this process. And we have also a lot of information on our website and, of course, the monthly webinars that we do on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe for our YouTube channel and for the rest of our social media platforms, so you'll be up to date to all the news that we are here to offer to you. Okay, so today we have invited a speaker, or actually an university representative, which we already had invited last year. So that's Margaret from University of Wyoming. Thank you so much, Margaret, for agreeing once more to join us today. But we have another topic, a topic that I don't think we had before within our webinars, and I'm so happy that we are discussing about it. And we have invited a professor from the same university, Dr. Tristan Wallhead, that is going to talk about kinesiology. So I think this is something new, and I really hope that the students will get to know more about it. And it's going to be Margaret first, that maybe I can give the floor and she can introduce herself, and then we can just start with the presentation. So for all those who are in the live with us now, please submit your questions in the chat box, and we will answer them during the Q&A session. Yes, Margaret, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you again so much, Alina, and everyone at US Education USA for having us back. As you said, my name's Margaret McElligott. Are you seeing the slides okay?
Yes.
Wonderful.
All good.
So I'm at the University of Wyoming, and I'm going to start today's presentation just chatting a bit about our university to put it in context. And then I'll pass to Dr. Tristan Wallhead, whom we're delighted to have here from our kinesiology department, to talk broadly both about kind of the study of kinesiology and then careers in the field. So we might talk a bit about kind of what's specific at the University of Wyoming, but you'll find these kinds of degree programs at universities across the United States. So you can find the program and the school that's the best fit for you. So starting off, just to put into context where we're speaking with you from, we're at the University of Wyoming in the Mountain West. You can see the beautiful mountains that we have. We're up at altitude, and we're unique among the 50 states in that we're the only state with just one comprehensive research university. What that means is that our students really have concentrated support for their work and research, and the investment in your education isn't divided among multiple universities. You know, there's no Wyoming State, there's no Northern or Southern Wyoming. It's just the University of Wyoming serving all of the people of our state. We're an R1 research institution, which less than 5% of US universities have that designation from the Carnegie Institution. And we're also a Carnegie Engagement Institution, which is a measure of service to our state. So we're really training the professionals that serve in every field across our state. And then we're also doing, again, that high-level research with state, federal, and local investment, which we then feed back into the community. So that, for example, the kinesiologists, the physical therapists, everyone working in the health sciences in our state is getting the latest research about how our body works and how to keep ourselves healthy. You can see we're also a Division I sports town. So if you enjoy sports, we're a really good place to come. I'm just going to play a short video. You know, you can see Wyoming in that upper north corner, but many times students, they might know about Yellowstone National Park or the Mount Rushmore, the Rocky Mountains, the city of Denver, but possibly they haven't heard of Laramie and the University of Wyoming. But you can see we're right in the middle of all these more famous areas and surrounded by national parks. So if you like the outdoors, if you like hiking, mountain biking, rock climbing, skiing, this is a great place to study. Because we're this big comprehensive university with a lot of investment, but it's still a pretty small university. So we have less than 11,000 students, small class sizes, and then lots of opportunities for extracurricular activities, minors in music or art, things that other areas you might want to explore. Because we're the only university in our state and we're heavily subsidized by the state legislature, you can see that most of the students here are from the state of Wyoming. That said, about another 25% are from other states, or all 50 states are represented. And then a little less than 5% of our students come from overseas. We're also pretty unique in that almost a quarter of our students are graduate students. And I know Dr. Wallhead can talk more about advanced degrees if you're interested in kinesiology. But again, we're unique in that your students studying here are entering this ecosystem of research where if you're coming in as a freshman, there will be people who are further along doing a master's degree, doing a PhD. And then we're also unique in that many of our undergrads are doing research. In order to participate in research, support a professor in their lab, including getting your name published in an academic journal, it's really important to have great grades, to understand the work, to be really diligent. But we consistently see that undergrads that demonstrate that they have the talent and the motivation are able to do high-level academic research, even at the undergraduate level, and they get access to the multi-million-dollar equipment and facilities to do so. Very quickly, just again, that we're this comprehensive university. We have more than 200 programs and more than 90 are master's or doctoral degrees. I am going to talk a little bit about how you fund kind of undergraduate scholarships versus graduate assistantships, just because I think it's good as if you're planning to study in the US to just understand the differences, and I want to be helpful to you in that way. We're also, we have one of the largest study abroad endowments for any public university in the US. This means you can get extra financial help to study abroad. You might say to yourself, well, wait a second, if I've already gone to the US, why would I study abroad again? But we know that having your home country context and then coming to the US and getting that additional context, information, professional network, and then going to a third country, going to Brazil, going to France, going to Japan or South Korea, going to Australia, that's going to give you new insight in the sporting and the health landscape that you can take home for your profession. Campus recreation, like at many US universities, is incredibly popular. Essentially, whatever sport you want to play, the level that you might play in terms of Division I, club, or intramural might change, but the opportunity to play is there. And I would especially mention our outdoor program. If there are outdoor sports, mountain biking, rock climbing, stand-up paddling, fly fishing, backpacking, going out into the mountains with camping gear and just staying out for a week and doing all your cooking and camping from your back. These are all things that you can practice here and get training on, including inexpensive equipment rental through our outdoor program. So it's very popular with international students. I'll just very quickly kind of go through the clubs and organizations, but again, for kinesiology degrees, you might be most interested in getting involved with athletics, getting involved with some of our sports club and the Health Science Professional Students Association. But definitely join the swing club, because every Thursday night, a couple hundred kids get together to swing dance. Because we're the only university in the state and the taxpayers of the state have paid to have this really, again, high quality education in a small place, we're not incredibly hard to get into. That's not surprising at the undergraduate level, right? If I've been paying taxes my whole life for the University of Wyoming, as long as my kid gets good grades, I expect that they're going to be admitted to the University of Wyoming. So the main thing we care about is that you have good grades, at least a 3.0. If you're coming from overseas, that you either studied in an English school or have proof of English proficiency. And then we also have rolling admissions, because again, for the taxpayers of Wyoming, if my child decides in May 30th or in June or July that they want to start university in the fall, we want to make it possible that they can start university in the fall. Now that we also have merit-based scholarships, including for international students. Those are also just based on your GPA. So again, if you have good grades, you will get in, you will get a scholarship, and there's no kind of additional work associated with that in terms of standardized testing or essays. It's just, did you do the work in high school that justifies the advantage in university? Here's the total cost, though there are a couple things you can do to lower that cost. So first, you can get a full scholarship, the full scholarship that you're eligible for based on your grades. Second, you can move off campus where things are a bit less expensive. Wyoming has a lower cost of living than most other places in the US, so that really helps. You can get a part-time job. We have guaranteed part-time jobs on campus. You can work up to 20 hours a week and after taxes earn about $1,000 a month. That really helps lower the impact on your family. And also many of those jobs can be things you put on your CV. So we have students, undergraduate students who work in a biology student who works in an animal science lab as a tech. We have students who are studying computer science who work on the IT team. And so again, that's something you can put on your resume. Other students, they'd rather just reduce the total cost. So they work in the dorms or in the dining hall, and that way they can kind of maximize their savings. And then the final thing is that we have a YO scholarship platform. So we also have one-off scholarships. Sometimes there are department essay contests, award programs. The professional associations you join for students frequently will also have national scholarships. So there are also these one-off opportunities to apply for additional scholarships, but that will take more work. Because so many of our students are getting these automatic merit-based scholarships, most students are getting a scholarship, most students are working part-time, and so we tend to rank really, really well on a measure of value for money, of how good is the quality of education you're getting for what you're paying. I want to move on to graduate study. Obviously, we have some graduate degrees in kinesiology, but we have more than 90 degrees. And just really quickly, the cost of graduate study is not typically what any student pays at the University of Wyoming if it's not a professional master's. And the differences between undergraduate and graduate school financing is for your bachelor's or undergraduate degree, you're receiving a scholarship that just reduces the overall cost of attendance. At the graduate level, instead of just reducing the cost, you essentially get a part-time job. And so for up to 20 hours a week, you'll work doing research or teaching, helping students learn the material. And in exchange for that, you get free full scholarship, free tuition and additionally a stipend. So the difference between undergraduate, where we reduce the cost of attendance, and graduate, where we make it free for you to attend and we pay you a stipend on top of that. So if you do your research and you decide, oh, I don't know if attending school in the United States is going to be possible at the undergraduate level, if you're a really good student and you decide you want to continue into a master's program or a doctoral program, you might find it's more affordable at the graduate level. I'll just mention we have brand new residence halls. Students live on the upper floors and the dining hall is on the bottom floor, and that's all automatic. You're assigned once you pay the housing fee and come to campus. To apply, you can either use the Common App or use an online form and pay a $40 application fee. At the graduate level, it's $50. But though I will just mention at the graduate level, because we have 90 different programs, each one manages admissions differently. Each one makes the decisions about graduate assistantships differently. So you really need to reach out to that department directly. And sometimes if there's a professor whose research you want to work on, you should reach out to that professor directly and ask them for their deadlines, their admissions requirements, and also the typical characteristics of a successful graduate assistant. With that information, you can really plan to be a successful and competitive master's or doctoral candidate. So that concludes my section. I'm just going to put this up for a moment so that if anyone wants to reach out to me by email or phone, you can. But I'm just so pleased that you're here all with us. And now I'm going to pass to Dr. Wallhead to share more about our program in kinesiology. Dr. Wallhead, go ahead.
Thanks, Margaret. Welcome to this afternoon, probably for most of you. My name's Tristan Wallhead. I'm a professor in the Division of Kinesiology at the University of Wyoming. Margaret was just talking about the graduate assistantship. Now, I'm originally from the UK and came over to the US as a graduate student in 2001 and came to do a doctoral program. And as Margaret mentioned, I took up on the opportunity to get a graduate assistantship which paid all of my tuition and paid me a sort of monthly stipend to enable me to work and cover my PhD. And so that was an excellent opportunity for me to come and live in the US. And then I continued to become a professor in the US. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about this field of kinesiology, which is really the study of movement science. Sometimes when you look up other universities in the US, it'll be called exercise science. But specifically in the US, they tend to call it kinesiology, which is the scientific study of human movement. Basically, what we do is look at or examine how the body moves and how we maximize how well our body moves. So we study muscles, bones, joints, the nervous system, and how it all contributes to making sure that people stay to move. We know that movement is very important for health, long-term quality of life. And so being able to move well is a very important part of contemporary society. Specifically from an academic standpoint, it's a science-based major, which means that if you're interested in studying sciences, this is at the undergraduate or the graduate level, sort of biology, chemistry, and then that moves into things like physiology and anatomy. Basically, those basic disciplines combine to we talk about how they impact health, fitness, and rehabilitation of the body as it moves. Next slide, thanks. So, why would you want to study kinesiology? Specifically, if you're really interested in looking at understanding people's health and how to improve their health and wellness. Also, in terms of if you're interested in working with athletes, I'm hoping all of you watching the World Cup right now, and how do we prevent injuries, not just to athletes, but as people age, their bodies start to deteriorate. And if you've got elderly parents or grandparents, you'll see that they tend to be more prone to injuries. And so part of the field of kinesiology is looking to how do we keep the body strong and mobile so we prevent these injuries, whether they're athletes or older people. As I say, we work with athletes too. In the US, they have a very strong college sports program. That's not particular to Europe. Europe tends to have sports within the clubs. But generally, I work in a university setting, and it's called Division I, which is a high level of college sport over in the US, the University of Wyoming. And we work with the athletes in terms of enhancing their athletic performance. That could be in terms of training, in terms of strength, resistance, speed, endurance, depending on the athlete. But we also have professions that help in their rehabilitation if they do get injured. But basically, we're looking to promote healthy lifestyle across all age groups. This is from young children all the way up to the elderly, and in terms of predominantly keeping people moving and physically active. Next slide. So what would you study if you came to a degree in the US? You'd study about anatomy, which is basically the musculature of the body and on all the bones and the different systems. You would also study physiology, which is how the cells work within the body when we're exercising or we're training. Biomechanics is really the physics of movement and examining in 3 dimensions how joints move, how they rehabilitate. Exercise physiology is specifically the impact of exercise on how the cells adapt and to movement and training. Motor learning is really a discipline within kinesiology that really looks at how do people learn motor skills and particularly relearn them, say if they've had a stroke or they're suffering from an injury. So we look at how best to treat, to help people to move again. Sport and exercise psychology is really the mind and how the mind impacts performance, whether it's motivating yourself to do the exercises to get fit and strong again, or whether it's to do with rehabilitating from a stroke or in an elderly population or from somebody who's had a fall. So So we look at the sort of mental side of that, of aspects of movement as well. We also have nutrition. As many as you know will know that word is how do we fuel our bodies to maintain health and performance, injury prevention and treatment, which I mentioned earlier. And specifically, actually, the last one is my area, physical education, which is across the globe, which is in schools, really, how to teach teachers how to teach movement in schools, K-12 schools. And so those are the main areas of study within kinesiology. Next slide. So specifically, what skills will you learn as a kinesiology student within the US and at UW? Generally, we're working with people. And so communication becomes very important, whether you're in English as a second language or as a first language. Still being able to communicate and motivate people to move is very important. You're also going to become a problem solver. Often people have very specific injuries or types within the context of where they live. And so it's been able to try and help them get to the next stage of movement within the world that they live in. And so we're problem solvers for people. We're also leaders. Often our students go into group exercise settings where they're leading exercise classes like spin classes, CrossFit. So we want to be able to people to lead others in terms of whether they're exercising or they're working with communities in terms of leading initiatives to help their community become more healthy. We give you the skills of fitness assessment. We show you a lot of different ways how to assess an individual's fitness, whether it's youth, adults, or elderly. And then we talk about exercise program, particular for that person. What do they need? What's the best for them, whether they're recovering from a heart attack or whether they're just trying to get trained to lose a little bit of weight or get a bit stronger. What is the best exercise program for their needs? We also have, as Margaret mentioned, we have undergraduates and graduates doing research in this area. I specifically am a professor, and so I become a full professor because of the research and the data that I've done. So I've worked with international students at the graduate level and at the undergraduate level. And the last one is really related again to my area, and I'm bringing this up because of the World Cup, but my area is teaching and coaching, in particular to sports. And so what does it take to be a very effective teacher or coach? And many of you watching the World Cups and seeing the coaches at the sidelines, what are they doing what are they doing after the game, during the game, before the game? And so really training, looking at teaching and coaching, whether it's in youth or in adults. Next slide. So specifically, these are the career professions that you can go. If you do an undergraduate degree in kinesiology or a graduate degree, you can go into physical therapy. In Europe, in the UK, that's called physiotherapy, which is basically the rehabilitation of movement, large body movement, large joints. Say they've had a hip replacement or they've injured their knee. Athletic training is quite specific to the US. And really it's people who work, professionals who work within sports contexts specifically. So if you're watching the World Cup, you'll see some people run on when a player goes down on the ground. And in the US, they're called athletic trainers. In Europe, sometimes they're called physical therapists. So athletic trainers work specifically with just athletes in sport. Personal training is when you're working one-on-one, setting up your own business to work with, or working in another business where you're working one-on-one with individuals on their own training program. Strength and conditioning in the US is working with college sports programs predominantly. And so if we're working on their lifting, on their weight training and conditioning to get their athletes to peak performance. Physical education teaching, I briefly spoke about, is another career in kinesiology where you're working in K-12 schools, working in physical education, which is very common across the globe. Sports coaching, I've just mentioned, is another area, whether you're working as a volunteer coach or whether you're being paid as a full-time coach. Coaching of sports is very popular across the world, and particularly in the US as well. Cardiac rehabilitation is really when we're working with exercise programming for people who have had heart attacks. And so how do we rehabilitate? One of the best ways to rehabilitate people after a heart attack is to get them on an exercise program to try and strengthen their heart muscle. And so cardiac rehabilitation, a very specific type of profession where we work with people who have had heart incidents. And the last one that I'm going to talk about today is wellness coaching, which is really, instead of just sports coaching is very popular across the globe. In the US, they have wellness coaches where you're working not just on as a personal trainer on in the gym with a client, but really you're working on much broader within individuals or a small group of people, looking at their nutrition, looking at some of their lifestyle behaviors, but also looking at exercise programming. So wellness coaching is becoming very more prevalent in the US as people look to get individual help on making them more healthy. Next slide. These are the kind of places that our kinesiologists work: hospitals, physical therapy clinics, universities. I work in a university as a college professor. Professional sports organizations such as youth development programs across the globe, or within college setups, college organized sports organizations in the US, or within clubs within sort of a European context. Public schools, I mentioned about being a teacher. Government also very strong proponents of health, and particularly after the COVID epidemic. How can we make populations or communities more healthy? And the government often will provide funding to have professions within what we call public health. Military also, in terms of training military personnel, definitely exercise and training is a big part of that training. And specifically, the last one is community health centers, where basically you can work within smaller communities or even within cities on particularly promotion of a particular health behavior that's a problem in your community. It may be drug use, it may be wearing seatbelts, or it may be related to physical inactivity. But basically community health centers, also whether it may be working on immunizations, people taking more immunizations. And so community health centers are a growing popular profession within the US and within Europe in terms of profession that a kinesiologist can go into. Next slide. So why Wyoming? Which is a kind of catchphrase of Wyoming. Why Wyoming? Generally, Wyoming is a very rural state, but we have a strong need for healthcare workers. And so a lot of our students who graduate the undergraduate program will stay in Wyoming, or they'll go to professional school or stay on for graduate school and then work in Wyoming in a sort of more of a rural healthcare setting. We have excellent connections to graduate and professional schools. We have our own graduate program here, which is master's and PhD, so you can stay on at the University of Wyoming, or you may want to go to a different university in the US to get funded on a GA. And we have great connections with faculty who have built connections across the US. For example, I have excellent connections at Ohio State University, which is a leading large university in the US. If students want to then go to a different school for their graduate program. Also, what we call professional schools are things like physical therapy school. So you'll do your undergraduate degree in kinesiology, and then you'll go to what we call physical therapy schools, which is a professional preparation school after you finish your undergraduate degree. We have a relatively diverse student population, specifically in kinesiology, because we actively recruit international students, particularly at the graduate level. But even at the undergraduate level, we've seen an increase in the number of students who have come into our degree who are pursuing kinesiology, are really interested in movement science, health. Cool professors, that's not me. Margaret will attend to that. But I believe there's some very cool professors in our program who were really invested in our relationship and connection to students, and we'll get to know you, and we can help you make the next step to whatever your career step is after you finished either your undergraduate or graduate degree. Next slide. And this is my final slide. I know many of you may not be English first language speakers, if you want to scan that QR code, it takes you to a website where it really explains a little bit more in detail about the career professions that I've briefly gone over. And so if you want a little bit, if you're thinking about what does that job actually include, you can scan that and you can bring it up and then search maybe one or two of the professions that I talked about to see exactly what they are, and what the roles of that particular jobs are. Many of these professions are relatively new in society, as in the last maybe 20 or 30 years. We've had doctors for hundreds of years, but we'd maybe have not had a cardiac rehabilitation specialist perhaps for the last 20 until the last 20 years. So kinesiology is one of the fastest growing degrees across, not just in the US, but definitely in Europe too. And it's very popular with people, with students who are very interested in sports, understanding how the body works and how we train and maintain our health through physical movement. Thanks, Margaret, and thanks for your attention.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Wallhead, and thank you so much, Margaret. I think it's super interesting, and yes, I totally agree that this is something super new, and it's super popular now among not only athletes but among normal people, I would say. So okay, I think we can jump to the Q&A session. There are several questions that we got in advance, and we encourage those who have joined us to also submit their questions. And there is a question with two of them combined. Okay, so the first one, are there any specific experiences required to apply kinesiology studies in the US? And I would say that might be, maybe let's talk first for the undergraduates and then for graduates. Like, for instance, if there is a prospective undergraduate student, what he or she should consider when preparing or when considering this major, maybe some specific preparation in the high school they should consider, or how they should be the best fit for this major, and getting a merit scholarship, as Margaret already mentioned, because you offered this a lot.
Yeah, obviously, I think I'll take the first one. Let's talk about undergraduate. And so when high schoolers apply to our program, what are we looking for? I think because it's a science-based major, we're looking for students who are comfortable and proficient in things like chemistry, biology, physics, the main sciences. It's not heavy on math, but biomechanics is a sort of trigonometry-based course. And so having that background and showing that you're proficient in those science areas is really what we lean into when we move through the curriculum. And so that's definitely important. I think having a second piece, which is outside of the sort of academic coursework, is really having a passion for movement. Have you been involved in movement? Everybody moves, but like, do you choose to move? Are you an exerciser? Are you a participant? Are you passionate about the role of movement or physical activity in promoting health? And see, it's very important. And I think being able to have that passion is going to just keep you motivated to work through the program. And so I think in terms of that's for undergraduate. And then for graduate work, we're looking at, again, your ability to conduct research. And so have you had any experiences of research in your undergraduate program, wherever you've come from? Again, have you done well academically within some of those science-based coursework, particularly in the latter ones, and you've maintained a pretty strong GPA? And then obviously particularly for the graduate level, one of the requirements of a GA funding is that you will teach some coursework. So we're looking for, is your English proficiency good enough that you can stand it? It may not be in a large class, it may be in a small lab class where you're helping. But basically, have you got proficiency to lead, English proficiency to lead that group? And that means that we can comfortably allocate you funding because we're comfortable that you can fulfill the requirements of that GA, which is predominantly usually teaching. Research is not as big a part of that funding. It's predominantly around teaching and helping teaching undergrad classes. The second question, when choosing a US university, what factors should you consider? I will say, when you look at the programs across the US in kinesiology, because it's a 2+2 program where you have 2 years of prerequisite coursework in the undergrad and then 2 years of major, they're relatively similar. Things to think about from a curriculum standpoint is, how big is their program? Do they offer smaller classes, particularly lab classes that go along with their lecture classes? My daughter is just starting her undergraduate degree in kinesiology, and she's gone to a bigger university. And I was like, well, make sure you get in that smaller class size, and that application of knowledge that usually goes along with the lab-based classes. That would be one thing I'd be looking for. The second piece is the curriculums are quite similar, definitely at the undergraduate level, but be looking for the smaller class sizes and the lab experiences that go along with some of that coursework. The second is, and probably goes to more Margaret's point, is what's the price point? Okay. And that's more not necessarily specific to kinesiology, but specific to the university as a whole. And is that place, for example, is the location of Laramie, Wyoming, a good fit for me? I mean, I've been here 22 years and love the outdoors, love the community here and the small community, but it's not for everybody if you want a bigger city. And so I think deciding what is the location that suits you. And sometimes, and that's not actually, the location here is not what I grew up in England. I grew up in a much more urban setting, but I appreciate the not having traffic, being able to bike to work, and just living in a beautiful location with the mountains and being able to ski in the winters that 30 minutes away. So I think location is still, and I know that's not relative to kinesiology, but I just thought I'd talk about my journey being not from the US and coming and staying a long time in Wyoming.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, now in terms of the tuition and everything, maybe we can just give the floor to Margaret. So if the merit scholarships that you were specifying are applicable for kinesiology, and maybe if you can just say briefly about those, and for those students who are applying for their postgraduate, what are the type of scholarship they can get maybe?
Yeah. So at the undergraduate level, the scholarships are automatic based on students' grades. So a student who has basically above a equivalent of a 3.5 GPA would get $8,000 a year, automatically renewable every year for 4 years, as long as you keep your grades at least at a 3.0 after you get to Wyoming. And then if students have at least a 3.0 or equivalent GPA, then they automatically get $5,000 a year. So that's the automatic piece that doesn't require extra work. But then there are additional scholarships that are available, but those you have to apply for individually at the undergraduate level. And again, I really encourage students to look both at our online scholarship platform, but also look at their national government or national professional association scholarship support. And then also, once you get to campus, don't stop applying for opportunities. So there will be essay contests, department awards, professional association. We recently had a student who won a national U.S. competition scholarship for the athletic training professional association. And so he went to the conference. He, was celebrated in front of all of his kind of future and current peers, and is getting extra, money for his studies. So not everyone is going to get that, but I have seen, especially those really dynamic international students, each year reduce the total amount that they're paying. Because they just really aggressively apply for every opportunity. But that piece is on you. And then at the graduate level, I'll pass to Tristan in terms of what's realistic. But essentially, we have fully funded kind of, you get a free tuition, and then you get a stipend for your work. So you're not paying anything to study, we're paying you. Tristan, anything you'd add on the graduate side in terms of cost?
No, I mean, I came to the US actually because of the GA model, which really doesn't exist anywhere else to the extent it does here. And it's not highly competitive either. When you're applying to the UK to do a PhD, you're competing for a very small funding pool. And so you have to be probably the number one candidate to get that funding. Whereas I'm not saying you don't need to be proficient, because you do, but that GA model is very accessible. Particularly if you've got good academics, your English proficiency is there, you can fulfill the teaching requirements because of your English proficiency, and then it covers all of your tuition, and it gives you about $1,200 US a month, and that covers your health insurance, and then it basically covers you to live. Does it give you a lot of money to spend on things? No, but it stops you going into debt, which is it's a time for you to learn, and you don't, and then you can also, so the GA model is a tremendous opportunity from around the world that I didn't know about particularly well when I came to the US, but I maximized that opportunity to get my PhD and move into the professorate, which was my career goal.
And maybe the last thing I'll add on the GA funding is just that it can change quite a bit year to year. Just because a professor might get a new grant or start new research, and now next year they can hire, they can expand their lab and hire more, bring on more GAs. And then the next year, it's a 5-year research plan, the research is concluded, and so then the next year they have 1 to 2. So there are times I always encourage students to take the process really personally, right? Like, make sure it's a good fit, make sure the interviewing committee really knows you and understands what work you want to do. So you have to take the process personally, but try not to take the outcome personally, because sometimes it just takes multiple years because it is a competitive process, and maybe someone just beat you out the first year, but the second year you get it.
Is there any other questions that we can?
Am I good with the connection? I just think
now we can hear you.
Disappeared for several questions. Okay, next one.
I think this is specific to kinesiology. I should put my GoPro on and walk around my building here, and we can show you. I could show. That would be cool, wouldn't it? But I don't know how we could do that on a seminar type format. But yeah, we have, and most universities in the US, particularly if they're Research 1 universities where they have a heavy research orientation, which is University of Wyoming, we have state-of-the-art equipment in terms of, we have a full biomechanics lab where we do 3D motion analysis on people jumping and landing and moving. We have a VR lab where we're looking at people's perception and looking at how they learn from one side of their body to the other. We have an exercise physiology lab where we get students we look at their VO2 max or their maximum oxygen uptake as they're exercising in our exercise physiology lab. So yeah, I mean, we have state-of-the-art equipment, and if you're learning anatomy, we have a 3D what we call an anatomage table, which basically you can touch screen and it is in 3D and see any organs, body, like bones and joints, etc. So yeah, and to be fair, this is common across most R1 universities. And so if you're worried about access to the state-of-the-art equipment, don't worry about that in the US, and particularly in sports facilities. Many of you, even from Europe, will have never seen the quality of sports facilities that you will see particularly in universities in the US. They are absolutely phenomenal. And so my daughter is a Division I athlete, and her access to sports equipment is incredible. From rehabilitation to training, their training rooms, their weight rooms are quite incredible. So yes, we have a lot of access from equipment and facilities, one for sports performance, but most importantly from a kinesiology academic standpoint too, and in terms of doing our research.
I might just mention one other thing that's more unique in Wyoming, which is because we're in the mountains, we're up at altitude. So we have a high altitude performance training center. Again, just now that's more for Wyoming athletes, not necessarily for researchers. But again, because it's a small university, you build those relationships. And if high altitude training is an area of interest for you, there's definitely opportunities to see these really cool pressure chambers and collect really cool data about performance and altitude.
Generally,
our next question.
Yeah, I'm going to take that question. Generally, what happens is it's a 2+2 program for the undergrad, 2 years of prerequisite and then 2 years of majors in kinesiology programs. So, and that's common across the US. It's the 2+2 4-year undergraduate degree that's common across the US. Generally, what students will do is they'll get involved. They can volunteer at any time in research labs, just helping collect some data. But generally, what they'll tend to do that once they get to know the professors a little better in the 3rd and 4th year, and then they get to go into their courses, and they'll get maybe a passion for biomechanics or exercise physiology or health and fitness assessment, and so they tend to get to know the faculty, and then they'll be like, I'd really like to work with this person. I like what research they do. They get to know what research they do. And so it tends to be 3rd or 4th years that tend to be more heavily involved in undergraduate research. Obviously, if you come in as a graduate student, you're going to be doing research from the not from the moment you arrive. We'll let you unpack your suitcase first, but then we will generally we'll get you involved in projects, and then you'll bring your passion to what research question you're really interested in, or whether that's something connected to the faculty or supervisor that you're working with.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Woolhead, and thank you so much, Margaret. I think we're done with the questions. And I really appreciate your detailed answers on every of those. For all those who didn't have the chance to watch this video live and you have questions after it, please submit them. You still have the possibility to submit them in the comments. We might go back and answer your question, or we can redirect you to Dr. Woolhead or to Margaret if you want to talk more about University of Wyoming. And yeah, thank you both for the presentation, for your expertise. We very much appreciate that. And for all those interested about kinesiology, good luck with that. I suppose this is going to be an interesting major, and we are looking forward to have more experts in this field. And yes, good luck with your applications if you plan it to be this fall. Otherwise, if you plan to apply next fall, you can still get our help with your preparation. And please go on our website and see all the webinars that we have prepared for you for the rest of this month. Thanks once more, Dr. Woolhead and Margaret. And I wish everyone a great evening.
Thanks, Alina. I just had one comment to make about applications. You just mentioned those. So if you're looking to, it's probably too late to start this fall if you're applying for graduate programs. So if you're looking at fall 2027, so the next academic year, you need to have your applications in by sort of December, January. If you're looking on the web, go to the kinesiology website, go to graduate programs. It'll show you exactly how to apply for those, and then contacting a potential faculty member. And so those December, January is a good time, because that's when we allocate funding, that sort of in February for the following fall. If you're an undergraduate, this can occur pretty much like Margaret said. We have rolling admissions. We can pretty much accept undergraduates at any time, even this summer for the starting in the fall. But for graduate work, because there's funding associated with that, we have a schedule that we kind of follow. If you're not being funded, then it's probably not as big as crucial. But if you're really wanting to apply for the GAs, the funded GAs, then really getting your application in by the 1st of February is going to be very important.
Thank you, Dr. Woolhead. I think it's a good remark on that. So yeah, thank you for clarifying this. Okay, Good. Thank you once more. We have submitted, by the way, in the chat all the information that Margaret sent us previously. So maybe you can talk a bit about the surveys you have sent, Margaret. You have asked us to share.
Sure. So obviously this presentation was an overview, but if any students want more information about any of the topics we discussed, we've just got that short Qualtrics survey. You can just put in your name and how you want me to contact you and what you want to know more about, and I'll reach out to you personally to share that information. So we also shared some videos just so you can see the labs for yourself and the really cool research that our professors are doing. So just thanks again to Alina, to everyone at Education USA. We deeply appreciate the work you do, and we're so happy to be part of it and helping students find the right fit for their professional and academic journey.
Thank you. Thank you.
And everybody has to cheer on England on Saturday against Norway.
I knew.
Okay.
I can't leave a webinar without making that plug for cheering on England on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.